My paper was called "I Could Go, But My Children Belong to the Government." And it was perspectives on outmigration from the western lowlands of Eritrea, where many people were coming back to the country to be resettled, having been refugees in Sudan, but they encountered this reverse flow of people leaving the country at the same time because of many repressive state policies that made their aspirations for participating in a new nation almost impossible to achieve. The main findings of my work had to do with the ways in which women in communities in lowlands Eritrea were able to join together in these informal self-help networks that allowed them to build community and negotiate identity outside of strictly the sphere of the state and what the state kind of held forth as being the dominant nationalist narrative, the way in which the struggle needed to be remembered, the way in which citizenship needed to be enacted. So in many ways, these women's stories about having been displaced or resettling in Eritrea or resisting the state by sending their children back across the border to Sudan, these stories were a way in which people could speak under conditions of political fear and silencing. One of the examples that I can provide would be the story of a woman who was a Tigray woman who had come to Eritrea back from Sudan, having been displaced during the conflict. And when she shared her memories of displacement across that national border, she really focused on the ways in which they were fleeing from Ethiopian violence, but also from the Eritrean Liberation Front in trying to avoid being captured by these various forces and to join family in Sudan, where with family and with other Eritreans from different religious and ethnic backgrounds, they were able to create more stable livelihoods for themselves during that period of conflict. And so consequently, when I think about that story that was shared to me and the story that many other people shared in Hagaz, what comes out of it is that when women remember displacement and they remember the struggle, they do so in very different ways than the state narrative about everybody joining this movement for liberation together and fighting for freedom. And they do so in ways that draw upon a social fabric that spans national borders, that joins people across ethnic and religious differences, and that sustains them today as they deal with many restrictions to their livelihoods and their freedoms in contemporary Eritrea. I would love to follow up on this project by interviewing young people who have recently fled the country to talk a little bit about their experiences with displacement and migration and how that compares to the stories that were shared to me by the people in Hagaz during that time period in 2004-2005.